morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hello, welcome to the fall in New York or wherever you're watching me from. I'm glad to see everybody here. Our latest video has been posted on YouTube. I hope you guys are following us. You can catch all the videos that I've done and my team has done so far. They're actually labeled by topic, so you can browse to the one that you're going to enjoy the most, or the information that you want to know the most. So let's start with the vaccination requirement, which we have gotten so many phone calls, emails, text messages about that. So the new regulation is that if you are submitting your medical form on or after October 1st, 2021, the doctor who is signing your medical form cannot sign it unless you have been vaccinated for COVID. Yes, it is mandatory. Yes, it is new. I know a lot of people have very different feelings about the vaccination. We're not going to discuss it here. We don't want to offend anybody. That's not the purpose of that. The purpose of this is just to inform you that it is a requirement. Okay, so you will have to show proof of vaccination in order to get your medical signed by a doctor if this is happening on or after October 1st, 2021. Just like with any vaccination, there are exceptions. The exceptions are standard. There have always been pretty much the exceptions, well, in a recent memory. One is deeply held conviction or religious belief. A note on that, just saying I don't want to get it is not enough. So if you're claiming to have deeply held religious belief, you will have to back it up by letter from your pastor or your rabbi or whoever your religious leader is, that would have to state reasons what it is in your religion that is prohibiting you from obtaining these vaccinations. For example, the Pope has already come out in support of the vaccination. So anybody who is Catholic, it is going to be pretty much impossible to get a religious belief exception, because all that the officer has to do is say, well, the main person in your church has said that it's okay and in fact has encouraged it. So that is going to be an uphill battle. Conviction. For example, you're saying that it goes against everything I stand for, I don't want to get a vaccination, whatever the case may be. The next question is, have you been vaccinated against other things? Because if you have had all other vaccination, but you draw the line at this one, it is going to be a pretty hard uphill battle to show that this is some sort of a deeply held belief. Because how's this vaccine different from others? Maybe something that the USCIS officer will say. Another thing that I think will come up, I'm not sure, but I'm projecting, I think the question may arise if you're claiming to have a deeply held belief. The question may arise, well, if it's between a vaccination and a green card, are you going to choose not having the vaccination and foregoing the green card? And if you are willing to forego the green card, it sounds like a deeply held belief. And if you're not, and you're choosing the green card, I think they will start claiming that it may not be so deeply held, right? This is just logically my guess. So that covers the first exception. Second exception, if you live in an area where it is very hard or impossible to get a vaccine, you may be excused. However, this is United States and we have huge reserves of the vaccine. So if you're in United States, that's going to pretty much not apply to you. The third one is medical. So if you have a note from a doctor that says that due to your medical condition, you are advised against getting the vaccine, that would work. Or if you got a first dose of a vaccine and had a allergic reaction or adverse medical reaction, that you will be excused from obtaining the second dose. Okay, so that pretty much covers everything, and as the situation is going to start being implemented, I'm sure there's going to be other developments. I am sure there's going to be litigation. I will keep you updated on all of that. Again, just so that we're clear, this applies to people who are applying for adjustment of status in the United States on or after October 1st, 2021. We do not have any information as to what the Department of State, which is in charge of the embassies, is going to do. Once we have that information, we will let you know. So that's been a very popular topic. Second thing I want to cover is the lifting of the travel ban for European travelers. As you know, Europe started accepting tourists from the United States earlier in the summer, and that has been going through the summer. I know personally people who've traveled to Europe, they said Europe was open, but they did require proof of vaccination pretty much at every turn. If you wanted to go eat, if you wanted to go to a museum or big venues or whatnot, you had to show proof of vaccination. So there's been a call from the European leaders, UN leaders, for United States to reciprocate, because United States has been slow to open up its borders in its full capacity. So we have had an announcement that starting November, all travelers to United States will have to show proof of vaccination. So that de facto lifts the ban on European travelers, because it doesn't say that those travelers can no longer come. It just says now whoever has proof of vaccination will be able to travel to the United States. So I guess this is good news. I was actually one of the people who didn't think that they're going to mandate it for travel, but this is one of those rare instances where I think I was wrong, and it all is coming to see that it will be mandated for the foreseeable future. We'll see, how this is going to start being implemented and what effects it's going to start having in November, because right now it's just a rule, so we don't really know what issues will arise. But if you are traveling to US and you have to show proof of vaccination, I think the requirement to have the vaccination done for immigrant visas will probably follow suit soon. I think one of the stopping factors right now is that a lot of people are traveling from the countries where they're developing countries, so they have scarcity of the vaccine. So maybe for now, the implementation of the requirement does not make any sense, because so many people would probably fall into the category of not being able to easily obtain it. But these are just, thoughts and feelings that I have. We will see how the situation is going to progress. On the embassy situation, I know there has been so much frustration, but please understand that each embassy is its own micro system. And even though we do have a way of getting in touch with most embassies, we have pretty much no way of making them schedule an interview for you if the embassy is not operational. So if the embassy just says that we're not interviewing this category of cases, there's nothing that anybody can do to make them interview that case. We've recently ran into an issue with E2 visas in Ukraine, where we got an answer that they were for the foreseeable future not scheduling those interviews because they were understaffed. Understandable. We have ways around it. But the embassy situation is difficult, I'm going to say, because we're having cases approved very fast on the USCIS side, but then there's a big waiting time on the embassy side. There are embassies who we've not had interviews with since the start of the pandemic, or who we've had very rare interviews with. I'm hoping that as the vaccination and the travel requirements are being implemented, that the embassies will start resuming its operations more and more. I have to say it has been very difficult, of course, on the families, on employers who are waiting for their employees, and of course on us, because there are cases that have been done, would have been closed and done for a long time, and some people, would be approaching the time to start filing for naturalizations or removals of conditions, and it's very sad. I'm hoping to have some better news for you by the end of the year, okay? Last thing I want to talk about is a new type of procedure in removal. So the name is called Dedicated Docket. I know not a lot of people have heard about it because this is brand new. So in May 28th, 2021, DHS has come up with new regulations. This is aimed to dealing with the crisis at the border. I know there's a lot of media coverage of crisis at the border. So, there are people on the left, people on the right. Are we doing anything? Are we not doing anything? So there is something that is being done, right? It is not fair to say that the situation kind of just develops on its own. What is being done? So the dedicated docket is dedicated to the families who have been apprehended at the border, whether U.S. Canada or U.S. Mexico. The legal definition is apprehended between the ports of entry. What it means is that they've crossed the border without permission, right? They didn't come to the airport, they didn't come to the crossing border and ask to be admitted in. They've crossed, through the desert, for example. So the family gets apprehended, and they're under Trump, they would have been put into detention, they would have been separated. This program is an alternative to detention. So what happens is they get released and they get scheduled. They're given a notice to appear. And on that notice to appear, there's going to be letters, DD, dedicated docket. Or for people who don't get notice to appear when they're released from detention, they will be scheduled for their first ICE check-in, and at that point they will be given the notice to appear that says dedicated docket. I'm going to talk about New York only because that's most of our cases are in New York and New Jersey, but majority of them, of course, are in New York. So in New York, dedicated docket means that once you've gone to your first court appearance in front of an immigration judge, the rest of your case has to be completed within 300 days. That's less than a year, right? So first court appearance, let's say, is October 1st. That means your entire case is going to be completed sometime early August at the latest. This is not a hardline date. I'm sure every judge is going to have, sooner cases, later cases, but they're aiming to complete the entire case in 300 days, which means that people will not be able to ask for continuances in the absence of extreme situations. It means that that family will go through the system within the year. That also probably means that they will never get a Social Security or a work permit under current regulations. We'll see how that is going to develop. Also in New York, for example, most of the dedicated docket cases will be held at Varick Street in their non-detained floor, just the 5th floor. And that means that you either have a claim or you don't have a claim. This doesn't give a lot of wiggle room really to start applying for things that can take you 3, 4, 5 years to get, because the judge may not entertain it. Most judges have made an indication that they will only entertain things that can give you an immediate relief, right? So for example, if you have a child who wants to apply for SIDGE, but the SIDGE is going to take much longer than 300 days, a judge doesn't necessarily have to say, okay, we'll wait for that. Another thing with the dedicated docket is that, as you know, people who've entered after November 20th, 2021 are not really eligible for prosecutorial discretion. That means these cases will not be administratively closed. These cases are not going to be frozen in time, and the person is going to have to present their claim and move forward on that. I'm sure there's going to be some wiggle room on certain aspects of it, but the person has to be ready to move forward pretty quickly. So obviously this is meant to deal with the influx of people at the southern border. This is meant to speed up the process. This is meant to unclog the dockets of other judges, and this is meant as a deterrent. Why? Because if you're coming here and your whole entire asylum case is going to be processed within the year, you won't have a social, you won't have the time to assimilate, you won't have the time to get a work permit. Once this whole situation starts kind of traveling through the grapevine and getting down to the people who are thinking of traveling to the border, the whole thing is going to be deterred, because they're not going to think that they're going to come here and they're going to stay for 7 years while asylum is pending and have the time to have kids and have the time to assimilate and see if the presidency changes, if new policies come out. This is going to move quickly. But as this is developing and we're going to have more and more hearings on the dedicated docket, we will keep you updated. Right, so this is pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. The vaccine has been a very big issue for a lot of people. I will not be pro or against in these videos. I will just give you what the facts are and how to deal with those facts. As always, you can always comment, or you can send us an email, text, and stuff like that. I did want to finish with a little anecdote. So I have recently traveled to Arizona, which is a domestic flight, and I get a lot of questions about, well, if I have my driver's license, can I travel to other states, without leaving the country? And I always say that technically you can, but legally you have to understand that once you get into the airport, you're in a federal space. And for example, I flew with my license. I went through customs and there was no issue. They scanned it, everything was fine. But the reality of the thing is that they're also not really looking for people like me to profile. And there is a certain amount of profiling goes on at the airports. So I do have my ID, and chances are if you have your ID, you will be fine. But if you're traveling to a state next to the border, there's a higher chances of presence of ICE officers. You are in a federal jurisdiction, and unfortunately, I'm not saying pro or against, but if you look like someone who may have not been born in this country, there is a chance you will be profiled. Again, I want you to understand, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying it's a reality. It's not a fair reality, but it is a reality. We do have people who have been traveling for 20 years with just a driver's license. They've even flown to Hawaii, went to Florida, went to California, all over this country without an issue. But we also have had people who have been stopped with driver's licenses and questioned and stuff like that. We've had people who've accidentally ended up beyond the border because they took the wrong turn and then ended up in proceedings. Things happen, and it is probably safer to travel now than it was in the last 4 years, but you are still taking on a risk when you are traveling through the airport system, because you are no longer in the state, you are entering a federal zone. So that's also what I'm going to say about that. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm so happy to be back. I was gone for a week. I know you didn't notice because I left Thursday and I came back Thursday, but I certainly did. Please give us a call if you have any questions. We are very, very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Welcome to the fall. I hope it's going to be a great one. All the holidays are about to start. We're going to start decorating, getting ready for a Christmas party, getting ready for the new year, and hopefully it's going to be a great one. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you next Thursday. If you've missed this or if you want to go back and watch any other topic, you can always go to YouTube, put in Conan Tucker, and everything that we have put out there you will find. Thank you. Have a great day.